CEO Money is sponsored by WF News 1 Incorporated. Views and opinions heard on CEO Money are not necessarily the opinion of this station or its management. Material on this program is intended for general information only and should not be taken as specific investment, tax, or legal advice.
Welcome to CEO Money, with your hosts Michael Yorba and Mervyn Price, interviewing private and publicly traded industry titans. It's a fast-paced show focusing on CEO achievement stories, industry breakthroughs, disruptive technology, and emerging growth companies. CEO Money keeps you ahead of the curve on private and public equity trends you can't get anywhere else. We deliver tomorrow's trade today. And now, here's your hosts, Michael Yorba and Mervyn Price.
Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba, and my co-host today, sitting in for Mervyn Price, is Andrew Kernan. He is American Property Guard CEO. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Andrew, my voice is a little out right now, so I'm going to sit back a little bit and allow you to bring in and introduce your guest, Russell Fish, CEO of Novo Labs.
Hi. Thank you, Michael. We have a real treat today. Honored to have Russell Fish with us. Russell's an electrical engineer and computer architect, and due to a wide impact of his work on everything from cell phones to supercomputers, the International Engineering Organization lists him as one of the 25 world changers. He's currently applying computers to DNA editing. Russell, can you give us a non-technical explanation of DNA and why our listeners should care about it?
Well, DNA is the computer program inside the body that tells the body how to reproduce itself, how to make arms and muscles and brain cells and so forth. The DNA editing is the technique that has recently been discovered that allows us to modify that program and, most importantly, to possibly fix bugs in that program. The technology that's involved is called CRISPR, and the company that I work with is right in the middle between two elements of the CRISPR space. On one hand, you have companies like Illumina that will take the blood sample or the saliva, and they will read the little bitty segments of DNA. And on the other end, you have the CRISPR companies, the CRISPR Therapeutics, the Editas, Caribou Scientific, and so forth, that will actually do the editing of the DNA. We're in the middle. We take those little bitty pieces, we assemble them, and pass them on to the CRISPR scientists and eventually to the CRISPR clinics. And the interesting thing is that for the first time in 50 years, we now have a new technology for potentially dealing with cancer. Cancer is a bug in DNA. It is a mutation of the DNA that causes the body to improperly reproduce itself, whether it's improperly reproducing blood cells or brain cells or lung cells. The cancer mutation is a bug in the DNA. And what this CRISPR technology has the capability to do potentially is to actually go in and fix those bugs.
Wow, that's really exciting. Now, so as I understand it, you're taking the sampling of DNA, you're then decoding it into actual, call it the source code, and then putting that in a usable way for CRISPR to do editing. Can you, I don't think most of our listeners are probably familiar with CRISPR. I know that's not your technology, but can you give just a really brief explanation of what CRISPR is, since I think that'll be a new term to most people? All
right, CRISPR is the search and replace from your word processor, except it works on DNA. The technology was discovered almost simultaneously by three different groups about 4 years ago. Jennifer Doudna at Berkeley and Emmanuel Compartier at Pasteur, Feng Zhang at MIT and the Broad Institute. And what they discovered was that just like with your word processor, where you say, I want to find this word, and it'll go search and replace through a document, that with this CRISPR technology, they can do the same function, and in fact, they can do it in the body in some cases. And it's simple. It appears to be pretty reliable, and it is really, really low cost. For instance, today, if you know the genes that you want edited, you can send an order to a company in Japan and give them $300, and they will send you back the CRISPR-Cas9 enzymes that allow you to make your dog glow in the dark or whatever it is that you want to do.
Well, that's amazing because to me it sounds like you must have supercomputers behind doing what you need to decode this, and CRISPR sounds like a really expensive technology, but you just said $300 to edit. Is the cost really come down that much, or that just a extreme example?
There's two things. First of all, we're in the supercomputer business because the assembling all those little pieces is assembling this huge, huge puzzle. You have, out of the aluminum machine, you probably get 300 million little puzzle parts, and you have to assemble those into the complete DNA. And in the case of cancer, you don't know what it's going to look like. If you're assembling a jigsaw puzzle for your kid and it's a castle, well, you look at the box and you can say, I'm going to make a castle. But if you have cancer, because there are so many mutations in the DNA, you don't know if it's a castle or a tank or a flower or a puppy dog. And so that's where the computing resource comes in. Now, right now, the supercomputing resource is very expensive for that. And one of the things we're doing is dropping the cost of that. We think we're going to drop it down to probably $1,000 a piece. The wet work, which is the part that's the $300 right now, that is inexpensive. So on the Illumina side, you can probably read for $1,000 for our assembly, $300 for the creation of the Cas9, and then there's some amount of cost for what's called the infusion, which is how this is introduced into the body, or sometimes they do it out of the body. Depends on the technology. This work is almost completely in research right now. I think there are only 3 clinical trials that have been started in the last 12 months, but it's moving very, very rapidly.
Now, when you say you're working to quickly drop that supercomputing cost, is that something you're able to talk about at this time of what you're doing to drive that cost down?
My history is I design computers, and I've done it for decades. And a large part of the magic of what we do is how you take things that are expensive and large and power-consuming and make them small and inexpensive and not consume much power. And the cell phone that you've got's got some of my work in it. And we're doing the same thing with the Novo, with the assembly of these genomes. Right now, probably the premier genome assembly work is happening at the Joint Genome Institute at Berkeley. And they use a Cray XC30 and an XC40, which is about 5,000 square feet. That's a $75 million, $80 million computer. That is great for if you're a government and you have unlimited taxpayer funds, that's great. But if you're a researcher, like you're at Sloan Kettering or you're at MD Anderson, and you want to do a series of these research experiments, you don't have that supercomputer, that limits a great deal what you can do. The first places that our systems will end up will be at in those labs that are doing the research, because we can drop the cost down.
We got about 2 minutes left. Let me jump in here real quick. You're making a lot of progress with rare diseases. We're talking about cancer, multiple muscular dystrophy, sickle cell anemia. Can we crunch that into a little bit of what you're doing there in those areas?
Well, the rare diseases are the sickle cell anemia, and cancer is not a rare.
Right.
25% of Americans will get cancer. 20% will die from cancer. Cancer is the area that is the most economic, and that's what Illumina is looking at. That's what we're looking at. That's what the CRISPR Therapeutics guys are looking at.
Got it. All right, we've got to run. Russell, thanks for being a guest on the show. All right, this is the website, de-novo-labs.com. Russell Fish, CEO, de Novo Labs. You've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba and Andrew Kernan, CEO of American Property Guard. We'll be right back.